Everyone, Rest of Aquarimax here. Looks like Dinosaurs Terror World already in the house. Who else is around? Got a couple people in the house. Nice to see you here. You can see my frog vivarium behind me, a little foggy. Apparently we ran out of paper towels and I didn't notice, so it's all foggy for you. Sorry about that. But I'm here with Mr. Skeletal, and I've had some interesting adventures lately. Hey, Little Bob, nice to see you. Been a while. Yes, indeed, it is Wednesday. Oh, Jay's Crazy Obsession and Heather Jensen also in the house. Ooh, 9 people in the house already and a like already. Love it, love it, love it. Zercool's in the house as well. Nice to see you. Flurkin and Porg too. Wow, lots of people here. Great. I was a little worried because I had to start it late. Little Bob, you haven't been getting notifications. I wonder what's up with that. I have been doing them pretty regularly, but I'm glad you're back. It's good to see you here. So, let's talk a little bit about what's been going on. Well, it's herping season, of course. The weather's starting to improve, and so I've been doing some herping trips. So I want to tell you about that. But, oh, Jay's Crazy Obsession has a question. So I will try to address your question there, but I just wanted to tell you the other day, went herping with my wife. We did a little hike about 5 minutes drive from our house up in the foothills and saw 3 gopher snakes, heard but did not see a lot of lizards. There are a lot of sagebrush lizards, a lot of spiny lizards, and a lot of whiptail lizards in that area, and I've seen many before, but this time I only heard them running around in the bushes. But we saw 3 gopher snakes within a few minutes of each other, and then a whole bunch of desert clown beetles. I actually collected 3 of the desert clown beetles for my desert vivarium, not the one that has the blue death finning beetles in it, because I'm trying to do a breeding colony there, but I have another one, the one that you may have seen in a video before. It has 1 smooth death finning beetle and then several just darkling beetles of various species. So pretty excited about that. Got some big ones. They're like this long. You know, that's probably about 2.25 inches, something like that. Pretty big. And so, hey, Down the Wormhole and Pocosaurus, welcome. Flurkin says there are only some common lizard species, but we can go inverting, and that's what I do too. And Cool Kid Awesome, you're not late. We just started. I had to start late today, probably for a month or so. I'm going to be starting late, and then after that we will see for the rest of the summer. But I'm still going to be Wednesdays. It'll probably be 6 o'clock my time, Mountain Time, on Wednesdays for a while, and then in July, like mid-early July, somewhere in there, I'll be probably switching it to earlier again. But we'll see. We'll see what works for everyone. Because I'm going to have about a month off in the summer, and I can do it earlier on those days, probably. So Elaine says, did you enjoy your son's graduation? I did. It was really cool. He demonstrated his personality. You know, when they called his name up, it was cool. He did his signature move there. It was fun. And we had family come up, so all of his grandparents were here. He had cousins here, an aunt and uncle. Well, no, his uncle couldn't make it because he had to work, but his aunt was here. It was cool. It was a lot of fun. So Jay's Crazy Obsession says, do you think isopods can stay alive if I don't feed them? I haven't fed anything until yesterday. I added some flake food there and a pothos plant, lots of babies and noodles. I was just amazed. They were still alive, and then added then after I got mine from you, so at least 6 months, my guess. Yeah, isopods can actually live a long time eating just detritus, so things in the soil. If there are dead plant material from the pothos, they'll eat that. If there are just organics in the soil that they can eat, and fungus that can grow in the soil. So yeah, as long as they have something to eat and they can eat almost anything, they can be fine for a long time. In bioactive enclosures, basically all they're eating is any extra food that happens to fall, any skin sheds and fecal matter and dead plant material, and they do fine just on that. So, oh, the Pocosaurus, it was the Vividin's brother, graduated. Heather Jensen says, have you noticed Armadillidium and Cubaris have a really similar body shape? I have a theory that they are closely related. They are very similar. The way that they close, however, looks pretty different. But I've wondered about this myself. It's a good observation, Heather, and I think a very interesting thing is that we have many different taxa of isopods, many of which they can roll up and many of which cannot. And it's interesting that they do it in different ways, and I'm wondering if this is a case of convergence, and they're kind of pre-adapted to be able to just a few mutations are enough to make them be able to curl up, or is there an ancestral isopod somewhere back in the lineage that they're all getting it from? I'm not sure what's going on, because there are so many different lineages of isopods, and so many that can roll up and so many that can't. Like the curly isopods, for example, roll up and but when they roll up, they have that kind of teardrop shape instead of a complete like a sphere. And the cubaris have more of a sphere, but at the same time, when their head and their tail, when they come together, is really weird and different compared to an armadillidium. It's not quite as sealed, you know what I mean? So very interesting observation. I think that's interesting. I'd like to know more about it. And oh yes, I'm sure the Vividin is proud. I think he probably said something about that when we talked to him recently. Let's see, cubaris have very different head shape. I think that armadillidium also have, it's getting cut off. Short antennae, also cubaris might just be a group, because it seems there are less species of them. Although they're discovering a lot of species of cubaris now. I don't know how many exactly, and of course, I don't know if all the Southeast Asian cubaris species like rubber duckies are really all cubaris. I don't think anybody really knows at this point, but that's how they're being, that's how they're being identified for the moment. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out too. Dark and Rexander. I think I got it right. I just recently got a betta fish as a gift. Do you have any tips in taking care of it? Sure. I would say if you can, get a 5-gallon tank or larger for it. Keep it warm. Between 78 and 80 degrees would be great. If you can, put some really simple, easy to care for plants in with it, like Java fern or Anubias. And there's a couple of others that you could put in there as well. And then hopefully you have some filtration, but very light filtration would be great. You can get it by without filtration if you do water changes and have the plants in there and so on, but light filtration is good for bettas, especially for the males. They have a hard time with the big tails and big fins swimming in heavy filtration. They're not really used to it. It's not their natural condition to have really a lot of water, turbulent water. So if you can, keep the filtration light, but some filtration would be great. So yeah, there's some basic ones. Hopefully that helps. Let's see, and if you have any other specific questions, I'm happy to handle those too. Heather Jensen says, I'm getting Vulgare and C. minura. And maybe that came out as a typo. Are you talking about C. marina? C. murina, the little one with the orange uropods? And we will see what happens if putting a few of each in a culture together. Ah, interesting. That would be an interesting thing, see how that works. I've noticed that most isopod species can coexist for a short period of time because they're not aggressive, but once they start breeding, one species typically outcompetes the other, but that may not be universal. I actually have right now, I have a culture of Oniscus ocellus that was wild caught initially. I mean, the ones I have now are not wild caught. It's been several generations since, but there were a few Porcellio scabra in there that I didn't notice. They were probably really young or something when they came in. And I am still pulling Porcellio scabra from that colony every once in a while. I find one, and I'll just put it in my Porcellio scabra colony. But there's a case where they seem to be okay, although the Oniscus ocellus obviously dominate, and that's partly my fault because I'm taking them out. But in general, like in my leopard gecko enclosure, the bioactive one we set up, when was that, 2 years ago? I think it was about 2 years ago we set up the bioactive leopard gecko enclosure. We put zebra isopods in there, we put powder blues, and I think we also put some, we put some jungle micropods in there because they'll bury down deep. And I think the jungle micropods are still in there, but there is not a single zebra. For a year or so, there were quite a few zebras, and at one point I remember looking there and there were dozens and dozens of zebras in there. But eventually the powder blues overtook them, interestingly enough. So I Am Pet says, what size tank is behind you? This is a 29-gallon tank. So same footprint as a 20 high, but just taller. So, excuse me. Jay's Crazy Obsession says, what would you add should I transplant the plant? I wanted to use the same substrate and add potting soil, but now I think I should just cram in a bunch more leaves and such. What would you do? Any advice welcome from anybody? Cool. I would say putting some leaf litter on top is not a bad idea. Just if you keep a layer of leaf litter on top, those isopods should be fine in there. Kate says, I think a lot of it has to do with location. If you look at maps of where different isopods are found, Armadillidium more inland and Scabra more coastal. That makes sense. Armadillidium in this is a fairly desert type area, are pretty common. They're the most common isopod I find here. I can find scabber in this area, but they're a lot less likely to show up. So, Jay's Obsession says, and go watch Simply Beta. Always a good idea, yeah. She's got some great stuff going on. Flurkin and Porky says, I also notice Cubaris isopods are extremely similar to Marullanella. That's true. I was looking at some Marullanella the other day on isopod.com, I think, and they do look quite similar. Okay. Oh, thanks, Rented Guy. Nice to see you here. Yeah, he's really chill right now, which is funny because it's feeding day, and instead of being all excited and going around like he does, a lot of times when he's hungry, he'll go crazy. But now he's just chilling around my microphone and my neck and not moving at all. I don't know. Maybe he's not as hungry because last week he got a double feeding. He's at that size where I'm trying to debate whether or not he needs to be fed 2 portions or just 1, but seems to be putting on weight, so, but I did feed him a double portion last time. Okay. And yes, that is true, Little Bob. They do need a fair bit of water that's clean. They do so much better. They can survive longer than other fish in deplorable conditions, but that doesn't mean they should, and it doesn't mean they're happy, and it doesn't mean they're healthy when they do. So good point. And thank you. I'm glad you like my scarf, which is also a snake. And Zercool says, they're zebra pillbugs that are white with black stripes. Well, at least they're very dark with light stripes. But oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying the white is white the predominant color? I have seen some like that. Yes, I actually have some high white zebra pillbugs show up in my colonies once in a while, and I need to go and isolate them. I need to dig them out and try to isolate them. But I've seen people show those, yes. They're more white with thinner black areas, which are pretty cool. And bettas can live in puddles in times of droughts, but they rarely encounter, and the ability to bear it doesn't mean they need it. Right. I am pets. What is the best way to set up springtails? Well, I'm going to make a long video about it, but I'll give you some short one. If you want to just culture springtails in a way that you want to be able to seed cultures once in a while, I'd say throw them in with millipedes or isopods, and then you don't have to do anything. They'll just be fine. But so, like Little Bob says, they're ridiculously easy to keep in that case. But if you want to culture them in bulk and you want to culture them for feeding off, something like that, you want to be able to harvest large quantities at a time. I like using get the 100% natural hardwood charcoal chunks and put a layer of that in the enclosure with the larger pieces on the top. You put an inch or so of distilled water in there, put the springtails on top of that, and then feed them a little and often. I like to feed them twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon or evening, and they will breed like crazy for you if you do that. And very little care involved. And Jay's crazy obsessions, maybe it was longer than 6 months if your gecko cage was 2 years ago. Wow, time flies. Indeed it does. And thanks for Rented Guy. Yeah, I think he's doing really well, and I'm supposed to measure him at the beginning of the month. I have not measured him yet this month, so I'm naughty. I need to do that and see how he's doing. I'm sure he's put on a little weight since last month because he looks like he has. So I need to measure him, need to weigh him. Thanks, Flurkin and Porg, for joining in. And hello, Mr. Snick. Heather Jensen says, oh, speaking of springtails, have you seen the blue ones? FrogDaddy.net has them on site, but out of stock. I have seen them before. I would love to get a hold of some, especially the giant blue ones. But I haven't tried that species, but I would love to. Actually, there are a lot of interesting springtails out there that I would like to play with. Some of the giant dark one, the Tomoceros, I think they're called, is the genus name. I'd like to play with those because they're big enough that you could use them as food for, young geckos and, as an alternative to fruit flies, basically. They're big enough to be able to do that, some of them, so that would be fun. How do you start a vivarium business? Well, that is a great question. I guess I'm sort of on the pathway to doing that, well, with vivarium pets more than the actual vivariums themselves. But I think one important thing is, making connections with other people who do that. That's one of the first steps, and that's what you're doing right now, so that's a good idea. Jay's Crazy Obsession says, I had to explain to my new neighbors why a bed in a cup is not okay. She started telling me she was going to put a fish tank on a corner shelf from IKEA. And oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds kind of dangerous. Oh, I lost the rest of your... looks like I lost the rest of your message. I Am Pet says, what is the purpose of different isopods? Well, some of them are really good for arid environments. I like powder blues for that. Most of the armadillidium can do well in that. Giant canyons can do pretty well in that. And then there are some that are much better in moister environments like the dwarf whites or tarragonas. And some are kind of dual purpose, like curly isopods do pretty well in both. I haven't experimented a lot with them in the arid, but they seem very, very adaptable. And that's true of powder blues to some extent too, but I've noticed they don't do well with my dart frogs, which is about the only vivarium I put them in. Well, I don't know. I put them in some cresty vivariums. Well, I don't know they've done all that well either. But with dry stuff, they do well. I mean, they need a damp spot. But with dry areas, they're fairly good with that. So I guess that's one of the purposes if you're thinking of, why do people keep them? And then there are different sizes that are great for different creatures. Like with a crested gecko, you don't want to keep isopods that look like lunch. You want to keep isopods that are smaller, so they're not going to eat them. And with my hatchling morning geckos, for example, I keep large Armadillidium vulgare. They can't eat them. They don't bother them at all. They make a great cleanup crew in there with the hatchlings, and they get really big, bigger than most of the ones you see, because they can live a long time in there and eat a lot of food and not worry about predation or a lot of competition. So there's, I hope that helps. And you've seen the blue isopods in the wild nature zone? I've seen a few that have that kind of thing going on, but it's generally because of an iridovirus, which is bad news. Oh, maybe you're talking about the springtails. Yeah, I've seen some blue ones in the wild myself. They're pretty cool. And Heather Jensen, please do let me know. That would be really cool. And Lidl Bob has said a surprisingly large amount of accidental springtail colonies. Done that myself a couple of times. Springtails show up in my cricket bin. Springtails show up in my desert beetle enclosure, and springtails have shown up in other places too. Oh, in grindleworm enclosures, although that's not necessarily good. Okay, trying to catch up here, everyone. Dagon Hunt says, hey man, I just wanted to say thanks again for making that millipede video. It was amazing. Well, great. Thank you for your question. You helped prompt me to go ahead and jump on that video. I've been meaning to do something like that for a while, but your question really helped me, get going on it. So thanks. It was kind of a spur of the moment thing. I actually filmed it really fast, published it, pretty fast. I didn't take a lot of time to do it, but I just thought it would be cool. So I'm glad you liked it. Jay's Crazy Obsession says a gallon of water is like 10 pounds. So yeah, it's close. It's like 8.5 or something. So rounding up, yeah. And with gravel and stuff, it goes up. So maybe not an IKEA shelf. She said, no, it's okay. It's just a cup. She'll be getting 2 20-gallon tanks and maybe my old 75. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, with 2 20-gallon tanks, that's one 20-gallon tank is great for a betta. I mean, if you don't mind the overkill. I think a 10 is perfect for a betta. 20 is not bad. My daughter has done that where she just has one betta in a 20-gallon tank and maybe a narite and some plants and stuff. They're the king of the tank or the queen of the tank, and it works out nicely. So good idea. And Winged Cat said, I managed to keep a healthy colony of backyard roly-polies thanks to watching your channel. Well, that's awesome. Glad to hear that. And Veranid Guy said, I had a happy accident with my Aki enclosure. The topsoil I used came in with small gray mite-like creatures. They don't bother the lizards at all, but they break down all the poo and waste. It's great. Oh, it sounds like springtails, possibly. And that is awesome. I love that. Okay, yes, blue springtails. And the Pokesaurus says, I wonder, you know how to stop 2 male ducks to stop fighting? I don't know if that's possible. I don't know. I've seen ducks fighting a lot. I've never owned ducks, so I don't feel like I'm qualified. But, no idea on that one. I wish I could help you. And Jay's Crazy Obsession says, it took me 2 hours. She was super easy to convince after she's seen my 20. That helps. And Nature Zone, I think you're saying mosses and liverworts for sale, right? Yeah, I love liverworts. Pellia. I used to grow that in large quantities. It's fun stuff. I love mosses too, both of them. And that's maybe what's going on. Okay, with the ducks. The little creatures come out in force after a good misting. Huh. I'd love to see a little video of that. See what kind of critters they are. Because it sounds like they're pre-adapted to doing well in a vivarium setup, so... You know, getting things like that into the hobby that just kind of appear is a great way to do it. I mean, I'm sure that's what happened with... well, I'm not sure, but I kind of suspect that's what happened with a lot of isopods in the hobby. Probably the dwarf whites just came in with, you know, plants and remnants of soil on plants from tropical collections, and they were putting them in dart frog enclosures, and then the people were realizing, oh look, these little isopods are cleaning up, and the frogs are snacking on them. Let's keep this going. So, I think that it would be great if you could do that. And see, this is a really cool thing, Verandid guy. If you've got, the cool side is 85 degrees, and how humid it is in there. I mean, I'm sure you've got some humidity in there, but I would be really curious. This sounds cool because there are going to be creatures that need that kind of heat and humidity gradient that you have in that vivarium, and these will be excellent cleanup crew creatures for them. So if you can get these into the hobby, I think that would be so cool. So Nature Zone says, I love seeing random critters in my morning gecko vivariums. Yeah, a lot of times you can find some really interesting things that are surprising. I've always gotten a kick out of that too. So, yeah, so Jay's crazy obsession. She's getting matching 20s. That's a good start though. If she's starting out with 20-gallon tanks for bettas, that's pretty good. So the lowest humidity is about 50, generally 65 to 70. So, okay, really warm, fairly humid vivariums, but not super high humidity. There's a lot of creatures that can be kept in that zone, and these could be excellent. This sounds awesome. So Heather Jensen says, I hadn't seen my little Floridas from you in a while, but I added 3 larger Floridas, and all of a sudden the little ones reappeared and are now a little family. Let's see. Floridas from me. Oh, let's see. Oh, Florida ivories, right? Yes. You bought some ivory millipedes for me, right? So I see what's going on. Yes. Okay. It just took me a minute because I was thinking of Florida fast isopods because I just got some and I thought, oh, I haven't sold any of that yet. It took me a minute, but I see what you're saying. So I'm glad they're all doing well. Yeah, mine are starting to grow like crazy. Some of my older peedlings. And winged cat person is a good way to keep fruit flies out of a snail enclosure. I've tried adding tool mesh to make it difficult to get into the container, but they sneak in. Yeah, I'm working on some experiments in that direction, and I'm getting some success, but I can't really tell anybody yet because I don't want to tell you and then find out that it kills snails or, you know, kills creatures. So I can tell you some things that I do that help a lot though. I get the fly tapes and hang them in the room. That helps reduce them a lot. What else? You can put out the little dishes of, you get apple cider vinegar and a little water and just like a tiny drop of like dish detergent, the liquid dish soap stuff. Put that in there and then the flies will be attracted to it and get stuck. The surface tension changes with the soap and it gets them, catches them. So you can do things like that in the room. You wouldn't want to put that in your enclosure, obviously. That would be bad for your snails. But those are some things that can help reduce them in the meantime. And Dinosaurs Terror World says, my dubia roach colony are successful. I may think about selling some. Oh, good idea. A lot of people do that. And what is the best way to keep fruit flies in the tank for feeding without changing the screen? I think changing the screen is the best way, honestly. In my dart frog enclosure, I spent quite a bit of money making a vent that would keep fruit flies in using just really fine, like chiffon type mesh in the screen, and had somebody custom build it for me. And actually though, I think I need some silly putty to plug 2 little holes, which are not holes in the screen. The screen is great, but where the hinge in the glass cover is, there are 2 tiny gaps, and I need to get some silly putty for that. And maybe if you have just some tiny gaps somewhere, you could try something like that. And molting, yes, that's the little millipedes molt frequently. So, thank you, Dinosaurs Terror World. I appreciate all the likes. And Extra Exotics is asking if dwarf purple isopods also reproduce asexually. Not sure on that one, honestly. There are several species out there that are, but I don't know if studies have been done on that particular species or not. Nobody even really knows what species it is, as far as I know. It's just identified to the family level. It's Trichoniscidae, but could be, but I don't really know on that one. But as far as I know, they think, I've heard at least, that Nagurus cristatus, the dwarf striped isopod, and Isopodus species Tarragona may be parthenogenic, as well as Trichorhina tomentosa. But it's also possible that some others are, and there may be some that are parthenogenic sometimes. Ah, okay. Sponge filters are great for bettas though, Jay, so that'd be a good idea. Jay's Crazy Obsessions. And Nature Zone still have the orchid. Yep, I do. I still need to move it out of there. Yep, seeing baby bettas or baby fish that will get a lot of people to join the hobby. Certainly helped me, make me even more interested than I was already. Certainly made me even more interested than I was already once I started breeding fish. I was already a fan, but. And thanks, Dinosaurs Terror World. Yeah, we're getting fairly close to 20,000 subs. So if you have suggestions about what you think I should do to celebrate 20,000 subs, let me know. I'm mulling around some ideas. And Extra Exotics working on propagating succulents. Oh, I'm a fan of succulents, and I love, I have several just potted in the house, but I also have some in our leopard gecko enclosure, and it's really fun. I like them a lot. What kind of succulents are you growing? And let's see. Nature Supporter, greetings. How many species of isopods do I have now? I'm not sure. I have around 30 types, but that includes morphs. So it's very likely somewhere around 20-something species, but several morphs of species too. Let's see. Rochamp said, hi Russ, is a peat moss okay to add to my substrate mix with isopods and millipedes? As long as it is, it's an organic one. You got to be careful not to get peat moss that has weird additives like wetting agents or, chemical fertilizers or things like that. But if you can get some good peat moss, then definitely it is. The Lugarti substrate that I did a review on contained peat moss, if I recall correctly, and other people have done mixes with peat moss. It works, as long as it's a safe one. Let's see. And Nature Zone says, I found some common dwarf isopods. They look like orange dwarf purples. Cool, where'd you find those? That sounds like a cool thing that's going on. And Mr. Skeletal is a particularly adorable scarf. He just sits on a nice big warm bearded man. Well, I am definitely a warm bearded man right now. The weather's changed, and now he wants to get in the chair. So it's been pretty warm lately. Hey buddy, where are you going? I'm just gonna let him climb up out of here, and then I'll get him that way instead of trying to stress him out. Don't like to do that. Okay, so let's see, where are we? Let's see. So Brandon Guy, how long do succulents flower for? Totally depends on the species. Some of them are really short, some of them have pretty long-lived flowers. I've had a few different succulents flowers, I recall. But yeah, it totally depends on the species, so it's hard to generalize there. Let's see. And I need to wrap up. We need to do it pretty soon here. So Nature Supporter, have you ever made a pond in a plant pot? I haven't, but I've seen them. When I lived in Hawaii, they were a fairly popular thing in big plant pots, like a plant pot that held, say, 30, 40 gallons. They would put those on their porch and put some tropical, emergent plants in them, and then put bettas or tropical fish of various types in them. They were really cool. I really liked those. Heather Jensen says, my Easter cacti are both flowering right now. They need a calendar, but I appreciate the solidarity. Yes, I do have some Easter cacti too, and I had one just flower for me recently. They are fun ones, and they're super easy too. I like them a lot. So, Dinosaur Terror World says, I tried mixing my dubious diet a bit. Should be careful in research of the fruits and vegetables safe for feeder insects to eat. That is a good idea. Oh, you still have a super red with my name on it. Okay, cool. I am interested. Let's talk about that. I have your number, right? Or do you have my newer number? Let's try to text me and see if it still works. Topsoil okay for substrate, mean in... Oh, am I frozen? I am frozen. No, that's not good. On Minala 110, yes. Send me a picture of your isopod, and I can probably tell you if it is Aniscus acellus. And you can do that at my contact page. Send me one email there. You won't be able to attach anything to it, but then I'll respond. And then once I've responded, you can respond to me with a picture. And Donato Marafona says, do you have any advice to encourage morning geckos to breed? I've had 2 adults in my enclosure since February and still not spotted any eggs. Thanks a lot. I'm guessing if your temperature is cooler where you live in the winter, that they are slowing down. Mine slow down in the winter. They don't stop, but they do slow down. That may be all it is. So now that things start warming up, you may get some more. See if that makes a difference, because that's usually, I've noticed that they do slow down a lot in the winter. Nature supporter, and can you get a substrike for me? Because for now I only made 4 video and I'm going to start making videos about ants. Cool. I'm not sure what a substrike is though. Julia says there's some good isopod Facebook groups that can help with that. Yes, like Isopod Exchange and Captive Isopoda and what is it? Isopod Classifieds. And my daughter and I just made larger habitat bins using your recipe, so thank you for all the great content. Awesome. Okay, I've got to head out, folks, so, and congratulations on your other ball python, Mr. Snake. Hopefully that goes well, and you're welcome, winged cat person. Very welcome. And I need to do another full animal room tour sometimes. Yes, it's been a while. It's been since 15,000 subscribers, so I need to do that soon. And okay, so I better go, but thanks everyone for